Hello, darlings, and welcome back to Diva Deep Cuts. I am your host, Ben, and thank you for joining me as we journey through the best songs you've never heard by the great divas of today and yesterday. Thank you so much for listening here on Spotify or on YouTube, and I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. This week, we are stepping through the catalog of one of the queens of rock, Pat Benatar. So, I actually started listening to Pat Benatar as a kid because she is one of my dad's favorite artists. I got a very good education in women in rock from his music tastes because not only was Pat Benatar's Hit Me With Your Best Shot like his song when he was young before he had children, but he also was a fan of bands like Blondie, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Fleetwood Mac, Eurythmics. So I got a really good musical education in that arena from him. But I came back around and spent more time with Pat Benatar's catalog as an adult and learned more just about her history with her career and things, and that she was a classically trained vocalist. And so listening through her catalog, that very much shines through, that she just gives these top tier vocal performances where she just blows everyone's hair back when she starts singing. So I'm very excited to feature her this week on Diva Deep Cuts and walk through some of the best lesser known songs from her discography. So let's get started with a track from her debut album. It's actually the title track, In the Heat of the Night. In the Heat of the Night is quite the contrast to most of the hits from Pat Benatar's debut album. Like songs like Heartbreaker, I Need a Lover, You Better Run, they just hit hard and fast and they just rock out. They're maximalist in production. They just kind of hit like a wave or a gale force wind. In the Heat of the Night, however, is much more relaxed. It's this simmering, slinky mid-tempo. Kind of captures that heavy, tired feeling of a humid, hot summer's evening. And then it has a shakeup about 2/3 of the way through where it suddenly shifts to this almost tropical sounding production. Not quite. It starts like vibrating almost instead of just being this sort of shadowy, mid-tempo, moody atmosphere. But I think it does a really nice job of showcasing the diversity of styles that she played with throughout her career. And it really shows that she's done that since the beginning. Like, it wasn't just a straight up album oriented rock radio made album. Like, she always showcased a diverse array of sounds and choices, even if it wasn't necessarily what got released as singles or what the label maybe wanted her to do. But it's always been there and a part of her. And I think this is just like a really nice way of rounding out and contrasting a lot of the songs she was known for at this time. Next up, we are taking one step forward to her second and best-selling album, Crimes of Passion, with the song Never Wanna Leave You. Never Wanna Leave You is on my list of songs that feels like it goes around in a circle. Just the way the production kind of loops back and forth and the way that the vocal lines get repeated. But again, this one showcases a different side of her voice. Instead of the throaty, belted chest voice of many of her hits, this one has this crystal clear head voice that's understated at first, and it kind of like rises and falls in volume. All the music terms are coming back to me after years of not playing in a band or orchestra. Crescendos and decrescendos. And then we have this great instrumental outro at the end where the rest of the band comes in and just has fun. But that Never Wanna Leave You hook is the anchor that everything pivots around. And it's so catchy. Like, I dare you to listen to this once or twice and not be singing it for the rest of the day. But yeah, I remember listening to this song, and it sounded vaguely familiar. And now I realize that we had a copy of this album in the house that I grew up in. So maybe I just heard it sometimes then, but it just, I don't know, it just is a true earworm. And it's kind of like a contrast that backs off of the very aggressive opening tracks of the album to kind of like land on this thing that's gentler, but still feels like it could topple over at any moment. So it's a favorite of mine on this record that is full of amazing songs where there's no skips. But it's and it was really hard to pick. Like I love so many tracks on this record, but I just felt like Never Want to Leave You just jumps to the top because of how different and catchy it is compared to the rest of Crimes of Passion. All right, next up we go one more album into the future with Just Like Me from 1981's Precious Time. So I'm bending my own rules, breaking them really for this one, because this one is a cover, and I try to avoid those generally unless the original version was not well known or the cover, in which this is kind of the latter, where the cover is so different and unique and takes its own spin on the song that it's materially very different from the original. So the original was a hit in the mid 60s from Paul Revere and the Raiders. I think it nearly peaked in the top 10 in the United States. But the Pat Benatar Neil Giraldo cover is very, very different. The Paul Revere and the Raiders version sounds quaint and just like a teen poppy number in comparison. Benatar's Just Like Me is in your face, wall of sound, rock production from beginning to end. She also showcases how to sing with a throaty tone without damaging your voice, which not everyone knows how to do. But this one, in some ways, it is similar to a lot of the songs that she had done, but the way that she belts out the title hook of Just Like Me, it also just gets stuck in the head so easily. And there's, I don't know, it's almost like a wake up call because I feel like, wait, let me see. What are the earlier tracks on Crimes of Passion? Oh, that's the wrong album title. Precious Time. Yeah, Promises in the Dark was the single from this record and the opening track. And that one was different production wise. Same with Fire and Ice was kind of a mid tempo, but Just Like Me, it was kind of like, okay, I can still produce great songs similar to what were on the first two records. So don't you worry. Just Like Me is here to remind you of what I can do and am capable of. And I was looking at, there's plenty of deep cuts on the B side of this album, but Just Like Me kept rising to the top, and I just found it undeniable. So I decided to showcase it here because it's just aggressive. I don't even know if fun's the right word, but I just like it. Like it's a very enjoyable listen, and it very much separates itself from the original version. All right. We're continuing. I tried very hard not to skip any albums this time. So we are going another step forward to 1982's Get Nervous with the song I Want Out. So this song is one of many collaborations with legendary songwriter Billy Steinberg. I had a hard time picking from Get Nervous because the singles are so strong, and I'm not the biggest fan of some of the album tracks, so I had to sit with this record for a bit. But I do enjoy I Want Out. I like the effect on her vocals that's seen on a lot of tracks on this record. It's kind of this watery, warbly sound. And I think it helps with the creepy, twisted aesthetic of the record because the album photo shoot was in a padded room with Pat Benatar in a straitjacket. And so I think it kind of fits along with that. Like they put that effect throughout the record, perhaps, to achieve that kind of effect. And I like the understated performance on the vocals and pre-chorus. It creates this kind of like rolling, creeping feeling, so that when the belts on the chorus and the ad libs come in, it provides a nice contrast in levels. So, and I don't know, the hook is kind of weak, but I really like the verses. I like the lyrics. I like the production, and I wanted to showcase something from this record. But if I were ranking these, this probably would have been down at the bottom at number 10 or even an honorable mention. But ah, this show continues to evolve as I make each episode. So, and I do like I Want Out. Like, I wouldn't skip it if it came on. All right, next up, we're going to the 1984 album Tropico with the song Taking It Back. Taking It Back is a song that I thought was catchy and bouncy with the chorus from the first time I heard it when I listened to the Tropico album several times, several years ago when I first dived into Pat Benatar's discography. But this time around, I really sat with the song and read and listened to the lyrics. And it's very interesting because it details basically how people in the music industry signed her and offered to make her dreams of being a successful recording artist come true, but she also sings about all the trappings of busyness and expectations and disappointment and stress that comes with everything. It's like, yeah, while you might be topping charts and having multi-platinum albums, that sometimes that there's just stress and loneliness. What was the exact lyric that stuck out to me? Yeah, there were parties and photos and televised award shows and covers of magazines. There was gold and platinum, and everyone was smiling. You were coming apart at the seams. That, from us, just as the general public looking in from the outside, like it might look glamorous and successful, but there can be a lot of pressure. The music industry is notorious for taking artists that are on a hot streak and treating them like a commodity that's like, write, record, tour, repeat, write, record, tour, repeat. And, Pat Benatar and her band had released 4 albums in 4 years at this point. And Tropico came out at the end of 1984. So there was actually some time after the Get Nervous tour for them to rest and regroup. And this was the album where they started experimenting with different sounds beyond just a straightforward hard rock sound. And, this has that kind of like bouncy 80s poppy R&B Lionel Richie production at the beginning with African elements, and then goes into a more traditional pop rock chorus structure. But the emotion rings true. And I love that the chorus is that her reclaiming her power and agency and being like, no, I'm going to do things my way. I'm going to get back to the music that I want to do. I'm going to say no to things and not just be on this constant hamster wheel of promotion and touring and production of music. So this song is even more impactful than just a catchy, somewhat empowering hook. Like it's really an autobiographical mantra for staying true to one's artistry and finding balance in one's life. So I just really like it. Tropico might be my favorite of her albums, but we'll cycle back to that later. So next up from 1985's Seven the Hard Way is a track I love very much called The Art of Letting Go. I love the glittering production on this one. The Art of Letting Go mostly escapes being tied too hard to the 80s, and I just love how it just kind of sparkles and glistens in the production underneath the vocals. Lyrically, it's unusually melancholy and romantic. It's about being in a relationship and feeling like the wheels are coming off, but not knowing how to let go. and get hence the title. That's a bit on the nose. But, feeling like, oh, I've been in this relationship for so long, I've forgotten how to go through the steps of breaking up with someone. And I love the clear, gentle vocal that Pat Benatar lays on top of the whole thing. There's something about when she does the flip into head voice on the chorus to sing the hook that's the title of the song that just has such a beautiful resonance, and it's such a pretty song. I really love the juxtaposition of melancholy, kind of confused lyrics over top of a major key production, or major key production over top of music that is in a major key. And because major key is generally evokes more positive, happier feelings, and to put something that's not happy over top of that lyrically just creates a really interesting contrast to me. So I love that. And yeah, the Seven the Hard Way album as a whole is one I really like. But this song, I think it's the last track, is just like the cherry on top of this beautiful, delicious sundae of an album. So I hope you find a lot to like about this song too. There's many layers here. So next, we're moving to 1988's Wide Awake in Dreamland with the song Suffer the Little Children. So this song is not the first time that Pat Benatar and Spider have covered child abuse in their repertoire of songs. The first was Hell is for Children, which I think was on Crimes of Passion. That song is hard to listen to. The portraits of child abuse described in the lyrics, coupled with the just very intense, heavy production on the chorus and at the climax of the song. This one is not as jarring, but it's no less urgent. The keyboard line and the drums are kind of like a proto 90s production, and they just have this moving, urgent energy to the song that carries along the very sad, somber vocal performance. And this one is like a different take slightly, where it's about children who have passed away because of being abused and praying for them and then calling out the people who treated them so poorly that terrible things happen to these poor children. So sometimes in live performances they turn the two songs into a medley, but very heavy, sad subject material aside, the production is excellent. It's just very, despite the sort of mysterious, somber, but still energetic and urgent feeling, like it's almost like it's covered. It feels like it's covered in velvet to provide some sense of comfort to the listener, so that they really pay attention to the message of the song, which is important. And sadly, both of these songs are still relevant. They have never stopped being relevant, which is sad. I don't know any statistics about what's going on with children. I hope they have improved since the 80s, but I don't actually know that for sure. But this song remains very important, and also a very nice snapshot of the evolving musical styles of Pat Benatar on the Wide Awake in Dreamland album and into the 90s. So with that, we are skipping over the 1991 blues album True Love and going to 1993's Gravity's Rainbow with the song Ties That Bind. Ties That Bind really jumped out at me when I gave Gravity's Rainbow a listen through when preparing for this episode. The album as a whole does a good job of updating their sound for the 90s in a way that doesn't feel forced or completely out of left field. Like Pat Benatar, Neil Giraldo, and their band really took their sound and updated it. They incorporated some things from 90s alternative rock, but they didn't leave behind their guitar driven, lyric and vocals driven production. Like it doesn't sound out of character for them. But yeah, this song I just remember sitting listening to the record and sort of perking up. Like, I love the singles that are at the top of the record, and I listened through the rest of it, but The Ties That Bind was the one that I just kept coming back to at the end. I just really loved the straightforward production that doesn't sound dated. Like, it doesn't even exactly sound 100% 90s. It just has this more timeless kind of feeling. And yeah, I don't know. It was just a gem of this record for me. And I wanted to highlight it because this is probably one of the albums that is paid attention to the least across Pat Benatar's catalog because of its underperformance. Like, they put a lot of the Inamorata songs, which we'll get to in a minute, in their set lists, and all of the 80s albums had the hits that they play. And True Love was just a jump blues album that was kind of a fun little side experiment to just have fun and make music that they liked that was totally different than their normal repertoire. But I feel like Gravity's Rainbow kind of gets the shaft, even though there's a lot of excellent songs, including Ties That Bind, on this record. So I really wanted to showcase something from that album here today because that is what we do, go mining for deep cuts in the catalogs of great artists. So, returning to my mention of 1997's Inamorata, we are moving on to the track. It's a favorite of mine. It plays so well live. It's called River of Love. Unfortunately, there was no musical clip of this song to include in the episode. A few months ago, the Inamorata album disappeared from Spotify and other streaming services, so I'm not sure if the licensing expired or if the artists chose to take it down or what's happening. But you can poke around YouTube and other parts of the internet to hear this song if you would like. I love it so much, though. It goes so well live. I happened to see Pat Benatar and Neil Giraldo with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra years ago. The Pittsburgh Symphony does a series like that with artists who are not in classical and opera periodically. There was actually a couple rows from the stage, which was cool. But this song, River of Love, fits in so well with all of their other hits. It sounds like some kind of classic rock song that the brain is almost tricked into being like, this sounds so familiar. It's so catchy. Do I know this song? I'm having a good time, even if I don't. And yeah, it's just fun. It's kind of like a little bit bluesy. It's energetic. It has a little like southern flair to it. Because I think on this record and with this song in particular, they really just made whatever music they felt like making during the album sessions rather than caring about radio or commercial success. And I think it shows, and it shows in spades. This song is over 5 minutes long, and it's just down and dirty fun from beginning to end. There's just this sort of vibrant, sexy energy. It's just very like, I don't know, it's just so much fun. And yeah, I wanted to showcase a lot of the Inamorata album because there's other great songs on there too. But I've in trying to showcase as many albums as possible, I was like, okay, which one do I pick? And I chose River of Love because it is to me the standout. I love it so very much, and I hope you have fun with it too if you are able to find a way to listen to it. Or if you have a copy of this album on CD or other format, maybe dust it off and give it a spin if you haven't in a while and take a listen. So now we have come to my favorite deep cut, as we always do at the end after the chronological journey. So for this song, we are going back to the Tropico album and touching on the song Temporary Heroes. As I hinted at earlier, my favorite deep cut comes from the Tropico album. Temporary Heroes is just really catchy to me. I love the switch ups in the production. Underneath the verses, it almost sounds like an 80s video game where they were experimenting with more new wavy kinds of sounds, and then a more traditional time signature and instrumental lines kick in on the chorus. And her vocals are just so restrained and beautiful with the harmonizing with herself on the love and pain hook at the beginning of the chorus. And I just love the way the song kind of breezes in and out and back and forth. It's just catchy. It's has a tinge of melancholy, but it's also just a really interesting sonic journey from beginning to end. And yeah, I would not say this is my favorite song, but it's my favorite deep cut because my favorite song is the underperforming single Let's Stay Together. And if you want to hear more about that, it was chosen by me as the forgotten single. So head over to divadeepcuts.com and sign up to the email list to get access to that bonus clip. But yes, Temporary Heroes is a lovely track. It's one of my favorites I've heard. I knew something would come from the Tropico album, most likely is my favorite, when I realized I couldn't pick Let's Stay Together. So I just sat with it and listened through again, and Temporary Heroes just jumped right to the top. I just love the production, love the vocals, love the hook so, so, so much. Thank you so very much for taking this journey with me through Pat Benatar's catalog. I always love taking these journeys with you, and I hope that you find some gems to add to your music libraries and playlists, or maybe some physical music media that you wish to purchase. Feel free to head over to divadeepcuts.com to sign up for the email list for news and bonus clips, to read the blog post and find the link to the playlist that goes along with this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening here on Spotify or on YouTube. And join me next week for another journey through the catalog of a great diva. Until then, I am Ben, and this is Diva Deep Cuts.